Hello and good day. Welcome to the Power of Africa Conference 2022. My name is Obe Dube from South Africa, and I would be your moderator in today's session. Today, we'll be speaking about diversifying Africa's core energy sources to become independent of oil. In today's panel, we have three distinguished guests around Africa, and I will start off by introducing one distinguished guest at a time. I'll begin with Nyasha Kashakara from Zimbabwe.
Hi, Obet, and good day to you viewers. My name is Nyasha Chasakara. I'm representing Solar Pro Zimbabwe. We are an energy providing company, renewable energy to be specific. We are looking at solar PV for home users as well as business users. We provide solutions that are tailor-made to provide hybrid solutions, backup solutions, and off-grid solutions. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much, Nyasha. The second distinguished person on our panel today is Dumi Pachele from South Africa.
Thank you very much, Obed. My name is Dumi Pachele. I'm from South Africa. I'm director and co-founder at iGen Pty Ltd. There's a local lithium-ion battery assembly facility, and we produce batteries that are used as energy storage, mostly in solar PV installations and in power backup applications. We have capacity to meet the demand for energy storage, especially in large renewable energy projects. Through this funding, we're looking to increase our local content and to create more jobs. I'm also director at Empiron Energy, and we run large-scale energy project development. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you very much, Dumi. Last but not least on our panel, we have Sunny Uputa, all the way from Nigeria.
Thank you, Obed. My name is Sonny Oputa. I'm from Nigeria and also a US citizen. I'm the CEO of Energy and Corporate Africa, an energy and corporate consultancy firm. We're into capacity building, conferences, market intelligence. We are also help in attracting investment into Africa. We handle licensing rounds and roadshows and performance enhancement to ensure that the business in Africa gets harmonized with what's happening in the international community. Like we said, Africa is our home and focus, but the world is our global community. And I very much thank Power of Africa for inviting me to this conference. And I believe we're going to have a very wonderful time. Thank you, Obed.
Thank you very much, Sunny. So in today's session, as you know, we'll be speaking about power. And thank you very much for having me here. And what I will do is that I will ask each and every one of you a question relating to energy. Because I introduced Sunny last, I'll begin with you, Sunny. And my first question to you is, what is the state of renewable energy in Africa?
Well, thank you, Obed. We look at it this way. Renewable energy is coming to the fore in Africa. Africa, we started more with the fossil fuel, but the state of renewable is that we have to create a balance between the fossil energy and the renewable. Renewable energy is an emerging energy sector in Africa, which hasn't taken much traction, being that the infrastructure for ensuring advancement of renewable energy is still at the infant stage. Just look at it that Africa has not been powered enough. Just some 10, let's say a decade ago, World Bank injected about 2.3 billion USD to ensure the power pool of Africa, West Africa. And just June 2021, about 465 million was injected by World Bank to enhance renewable energy utilization in West Africa, for instance. So a lot of sectors have not been received the infrastructure that will ensure that renewable energy gets the growth. But there's a trend that is now empowering an advancement. Look at it. Come 2050, Africa is supposed to become the second largest population in the world, following that of Asia. But we look at the extent of power utilization in Africa, it's still poor. Now, Africa depends more on the biomass. But we look at the energy mix that come 2025 to 2030, the energy mix will no longer be 70% fossil fuel to 20% renewable. We are looking at a situation that it will become about 60% fossil fuel and 40% renewable. That's going to be an increase. So today in Africa, there's a growth in utilization of renewable and the reservation of the renewable. Some countries have started to imbibe what is going on, like Morocco is a country that has some advancement in renewable. Okay, there is a good development in Zimbabwe from what I know. South Africa is catching up, and also Nigeria is catching up, and Angola. But there's supposed to be a lot of reforms that will help advancement of renewable. This government need to inject. If government doesn't do it, the stimulation of the renewable energy economy will not come at full. So the idea is that the government should ensure some reforms that will help the advancement of this part of the economy. And also, a lot of international companies have not come to Africa to invest in renewable. If you look at the big oil companies like ExxonMobil, Shell, Chevron, Total, they are investing more in renewable in North America. They're investing more in Europe than in Africa. But my challenge and question to them, you have roots in Africa. Africa is where we have to power very well, and Africa is the fertile ground for renewable energy to be lifted up. So we're asking for adequate attraction of investors to the African sector. Right now, Africa lacks big investment or the appetite for investors to come and ensure that the needed growth is being realized. But then what is very important is that Africa is catching up with the appetite to ensure that energy affordability, energy availability, and energy affordability and availability comes by creating balance within the fossil and the renewable. And also the manufacturing sector should be enhanced and encouraged to advance renewable in Africa. Right now, I've heard my colleagues introducing themselves that represent the solar energy panel or manufacturing sector. That's a good news, very good news to us. The state is still at the infantile stage, but there's growth and there is hope that come 2050, renewable will take over the biomass utilization in Africa. And the state is that more acknowledgement is coming on for people to understand that we are not saying that fossil fuel should go away, but there should be a balance because Africa needs to be powered. And only way to power Africa is to create a balance between the fossil and the renewable. And that will create energy affordability and energy availability and economic development in all sectors of Africa. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sunny. To ask the other two panelists, the follow-up question would be, what do you think the role is for government or private sector within renewable energy in South Africa? Dumi, could you start off by answering the question?
It is very clear that the level of investment that is required to drive large-scale adoption of renewable energy is at the scale of government. For example, to set up large-scale manufacturing in lithium-ion batteries, for example, it actually requires a lot of effort. For example, in Zimbabwe, there are lithium mines, but most of that lithium is not processed on this continent. The majority of all of the cells that are used, for example, in batteries are actually manufactured in China. And for Africans to be able to push some manufacturing back to Africa, there has to be much more cooperation at government level. So I'm often asked, because I come from an organization that locally assembles lithium-ion batteries. I'm constantly asked, but why don't you manufacture the base cells yourselves from South Africa? And you're saying that we can't. It's a government level type investment. It's very difficult for any small, and we would still fall under the small and medium sized businesses. Even large businesses are not finding the opportunities and the right support to actually bring that large scale manufacturing back to the continent. So at the end of the day, it's cooperation that is needed, and that cooperation is probably needed across government, across regions, and actually across all of the continent. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dumi. May I go to you, Nyasha? And the question I have for you is it feasible for Africa to create its own solar product manufacturing capacity?
Well, thank you, Obed. I think from the discussion that we are having, it's quite critical. It's not only what we need; it's something that should be done as of, like they say, as of yesterday. Because if you look at the demand for energy products in Africa, it's mostly driven by the fact that there is actually a need to connect people to electricity. Your utility companies, across Africa, especially in Southern Africa, where close to 700 million are actually right now don't have access to electricity of any form. I mean, you are talking of people who rely on candles, who rely on generators. And this is not just in Southern Africa, but Southern Africa is the worst affected. And when you look at the current focus of African companies in the solar industry, it's really to import products. I quite like Tumi in this particular instance, because she's actually adding value by creating jobs at home. If you go on the internet, you come across a lot of companies, or who that are also trying to do the same, assembling batteries, getting BMS and battery cases, and putting them together. There's an opportunity for us, especially within Southern Africa, because we've got a literate population. We've got universities that are producing, good graduates in electrical engineering, mechanical engineering, that could be looking at putting together some of these things. Tumi mentioned the issue that Zimbabwe is actually exporting lithium in its raw form at the moment. If African governments were to come together to actually create a policy framework that allows for companies that have got the capacity to come to the source of these materials, it can actually work. If you look at solar panels, there are a lot of companies that are trying, I think, especially in East Africa, and countries like Egypt, Algeria. I've come across a number of solar panel manufacturing companies in South Africa. I do know that there is one or two as well that are trying to do that, but the scale at which this production of solar equipment is done it's huge. I mean, if you look at us trying to do it, that's where the problem can come. But if we put our resources together, it's very possible, and it can actually result in Southern Africa increasing, access to renewable energy. And as you know, access to renewable energy has got a lot of impact in terms of creating more jobs, in terms of lifting up, economies. Because without power, really, your industries, downstream industries, manufacturing, mining, they will not do so well. Thank you.
Can I also add on then, Nyasha? In South Africa, for example, we have a large program that is almost underpinned by government work, where government, through the national utility, actually buys power from independent power producers. And the one thing that we always see as a major stumbling block for improving or increasing the level of local manufacturing is that the process itself is subject to very stiff competitive bidding. And because of that, and a lot of the bidders are not even local. And because of that, there's always concessions that are made, and that these bidders are allowed to actually bid on the basis of fully manufactured solar panels that are actually coming from China and other parts of the world. But in our view, this would be the opportunity to local content. A government-led program should always insist on local content. But to this day, what we keep on saying, and that's why we revert back to government, is if government is not able to intervene at that level, how else, or what other mechanisms are actually available to do program that procures a lot of megawatts, but we have nothing to show in terms of local content. And that for me is a big area of improvement, and not just in South Africa, but in the rest of the countries as well. Thank you.
Yeah. Yes, thank you, Tumi. If I may come in again, Obed, I think Tumi touches onto a very important point, which is, the capacity building of local companies. If you look at, free trade areas, I think we've got SADC in our area. We also have the Africa Free Trade Area that is coming up. I think we don't necessarily need to manufacture the whole panel from start to finish, even assembling, finishing up the products. I mean, if you look at China, how China did it, it wasn't really a question of them starting with everything. They were importing machinery from Germany, from other countries, and people then got to produce their own products because they were now doing it and they were attracting investors to come in and set up plants there. So indeed, I think the environment must be right for companies to be able to see the opportunity to come to the market where there's the demand. I mean, if you look at how many containers come through of solar panels for projects that are coming up, you've got Zimbabwe aiming to do 1,000 megawatt, in terms of solar PV until 2030. Just looking at that, the scale of such projects is huge, and you cannot then continue to outsource some of these, resources from outside. Thank you, Obed.
Obed, if I have to just chip in a little bit, I heard Tumi and Nyasha talk about local content. That's very important. But another area Africa should look at beyond local content is regional content. Regional content is all about collaboration in sharing your resources, your human capital. Think of South Africa collaborating with Zimbabwe. Think of Zimbabwe, South Africa collaborating with Nigeria and Angola. We have adequate human capital, but we've not been able to utilize that very well. And we have to create the enabling environment to investors to feel that their investment will be secure. But the most importantly is the regional content that comes through collaboration, partnership in various aspects. It will surely help us. We are kind of behind in the innovation and technology involved in propelling renewable. We are trying to catch up. Other parts of the world are already ahead of us. The good news that we are into it. If you look at how United States of America collaborates with Canada in ensuring all this, even at Gulf of Mexico, what they're also doing with the neighboring countries of Mexico, it tells us that Africa, either that we do it very well through the African Union, or we have to find a better way. You see, energy is the blood of life. The blood of life today, if Africa was developed, the energy level of utilization and being able to get to the rural communities is very essential. We're going to continue to be a continent that will be importing everything if we don't come together to do something. So I am more of an apostle of regional content, as well as I want to integrate local content in what we do. Where do we have that comparative advantage from Zimbabwe, which we think that will benefit South Africa? Where is that competitive advantage we have from the rest of the world? If you look at Africa, we have enough sunshine to ensure that solar energy is not a problem. Listen, you don't have much in a country like Norway, but Africa, they're still going into solar panel when they don't have enough sunshine, some of these countries. But Africa, we have abundant sunshine. Where can't we utilize it and conserve it very well? That's my own input to that. Regional content helps collaboration and success.
Thank you very much for that, Sunny. I think that is so true, that especially as African countries, we need to have and form partnerships, because through partnerships with the resources that we have with different countries, through those partnerships, we can actually create synergy. And with those partnerships, we can actually basically overcome many of the challenges that we have individually because of coming together. Dumi, you touched on something very important earlier on. You spoke a bit about Zimbabwe in terms of minerals, where they have lithium, but yet they export the lithium. So the question I have for you, Dumi, is how does Africa capitalize on its mineral resources to fuel growth and economic development?
Yeah, the biggest opportunity for Africans to really benefit from their mineral resources is to look at supply chains right across the continent. No one country needs to be good at everything. So what we should be doing is exactly that. Where one mineral is mined, we have to look at how we can still keep all of that mineral within the continent. It might not be kept within the country because, as you can imagine, it depends on capability and capacity to manufacture or to actually process. So before we even look at exporting minerals out of the continent, we need to be checking which other country on the continent can actually use this mineral, and maybe even go as far as saying where there is no capacity or capability, how do we then build on so that we do not lose this? So the biggest problem is the thinking that we need, the forward thinking, and this brings in the use, and I did even hear Sandy talk about, the Sorinyasha talk about the engineers that we are actually producing on this or on this continent, that we sometimes even end up losing. I mean, I know some of our engineers that are running wind power stations in Europe, etc. But the thinking there is, if we can't do it now, what do we put in place? What capabilities are we putting in place to make sure that we can at least do it in the next 10 years? So that kind of thinking is a kind of thinking that we normally do not find in governments. But in the associations that we participate in, I think those should be the biggest topics. And say we might not be able to do these things now, but we have an unemployment, especially amongst the youth, and it's not just in the Southern African region. This issue seems to be happening everywhere else on the continent, let alone in many parts of the world as well. How do we then engage our youth and what is coming out of their education to make sure that we actually develop? There is no reason why we should be losing minerals to China and then get them back developed into all sorts of stuff, even basic things as diamonds. And I know that Botswana is looking at reversing all of that. In fact, I might even be be correct when I say they've almost reversed all of that. Where there's some processing that actually happens in the country. Thank you.
Yeah. Obed, if I may contribute a bit on this, am I permitted to go ahead?
Yes, please, the floor is yours, Sunny.
Just from what Tumi said, that's very essential. But we can also look at it this way. The mineral sector of Africa has not been quite developed because we lack the technology. Mineral exploration, exploitation, and production is capital intensive. We lack capital in Africa. Most of the capital required will be gathered from international banks and communities. That's still attraction of foreign direct investment. We don't have the technology for massive exploration and production. That's where African governments will start looking at how to channel the funding to support local companies like Tumi, Nyasha, and others. We look at African Development Bank. What is the bank doing? Or can we have an African Mineral Development Bank or Energy Development Bank that will help in uplifting the aspiration of local manufacturers and local companies to ensure this? Without money, you cannot bring the adequate technology to ensure the development of this sector. And that's where there is massive capital flight from Africa. Other nationalities come to take these minerals from Africa. They take it to their countries and they kind of produce them and turn them into gold and to money. And we still have to bring back some. We are losing a lot of capital. That's an integration of local content and investment that African governments should have reform on how to do it. And again, if you look at Africa, where our government have not done enough is in the area of mineral security. There is a lot of illegal mining in Africa. We are losing money. We are being sabotaged even by some international communities. Some foreign countries and companies are involved in instigating illegal mining and bunkering in Africa. Our government should be able to look into that. We are losing money through bunkering. We are losing money through illegal mining. And since we don't have the infrastructure, you see, the man hour it takes to kind of produce a barrel of oil in Africa. Let me take that one for instance. If you go to a country like Saudi Arabia, it might take about $8 to produce a barrel of oil. But in Africa, it takes close to $30 to $50. So you see, we are not very competitive. The same way it comes to mining, it costs us more to mine because we are doing it from the artisan way. Don't think of people using shovel and digger to pummel the ground to get minerals out, where you have essential equipment and tools that could be used. So what I'm trying to submit is that we have to find a way, again, collaboration, to ensure that we have the technology. The same technology used in South Africa could also be pushed to the producer in Zimbabwe. Assuming you're able to mine your field these 3 months, there should be a cluster. The same equipment, whether rig or tractor, could be put to Zimbabwe in the next 3 months. The other person will use it. But then our government really need to have a financial institution that is stable for Africa. Our over-independence in international community to give us money is not helping. Because if you go to obtain loan from London, America, the kind of question they'll ask the company from Africa is not the same thing they'll ask the guy from UK or from America. I'm telling you from experience. And these are the areas because we have not been able to do our PR very well and to prepare our companies and workers. So it's very important that government start looking at that. And we have to be able to create a voice and a platform. That's what I like what Power of Africa is presenting this year in the conference. We should have a voice, speak out, and to push for these reforms. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sunny, for that. Going back to you, Nyasha, my question to you is, what needs to be done to increase renewable energy adoption in Africa?
Okay, so I want to first maybe speak about what Sunny was talking about in terms of lack of capital in Africa. I think in terms of resources in Africa, there are plenty of resources. If we just focus maybe, for instance, on the pension fund industry in Africa, we focus on the tax revenues collected by governments, across Africa. I think where Africa maybe sometimes gets it wrong is the allocation of those resources to things that really move the needle in terms of what's required. I'm speaking here when I look at the pension fund industry. You will find that the pension fund industry might be, investing in things like money market instruments, government treasury bills, that are really, focused on maybe in some of the cases consumption and not capital development. And that really worries me when it comes to policies that are being put in place maybe to support the energy sector. Because sometimes I think just the understanding of what the development of an energy sector of a country does, sometimes it's not really understood. But when you look at mining companies going, reducing production, companies investing in big generators. I mean, if you look at Southern Africa with the power cuts that are happening, not just in Zimbabwe, but also in South Africa, it's forcing people to allocate resources to big generators that actually, pollute the environment, that cost more to run because the fuel prices are going up. So I think there's need for introspection in terms of investments that are being done, by some of our excess capital or long-term capital in Africa. If there's a need to maybe allocate resources, a certain percentage of taxes collected to developing an energy sector or energy think tanks that directs, government to spend money in the areas required, then that would really help. Turning to your question on what needs to be done to increase adoption of renewable energy, I think it boils down to education, because in most cases within some African countries, people actually buy a generator and as a way of solving some of their power problems, when that same generator, when you look at it 2-3 years down the line, could actually have been spent on a solar system. Even when you are looking at that spending, it might actually just be because someone didn't actually understand that there is an alternative, which is renewable energy, clean energy. So education is one. Then secondly, I think government policies are also important, because if there are tax incentives, for instance, for someone to go on solar, this has worked very well in America, where governments actually provide subsidies to homeowners or businesses that are turning to solar. In Zimbabwe, for instance, there are no subsidies yet, but I think maybe this is something that needs to be looked at, because it definitely reduces the cost of the development of bigger power stations like hydro or coal-powered, stations. At a private sector level, there's also the role of banks. Banks are particularly, shy when it comes to renewable energy, supporting renewable energy, when they actually can provide loans for car loans, for consumption loans, but they are a bit shy because I think it's still quite a new technology to most bankers. I was a banker before for 15 years. I left banking last year. And so I do know that getting a loan for solar is something that it has not been easy in the past. Of course, it's changing, but I think banks have a role to play in Southern Africa in terms of increasing adoption of solar energy. Then the other issue also is to do with our own research and development within Southern Africa in the energy sector. what we tend to see is products that are pushed down on us from manufacturers in China, in countries that are producing inverters, batteries. If you look at some of the needs of a rural sort of consumer, they don't need a huge battery bank. They don't need big panels, 500, 600 watt panels. But if you look across the supply chain in Africa, you rarely find the smaller panels or smaller solutions that are geared towards the small user. In fact, when you try and import some of those products from China, they are actually more expensive per watt compared to the bigger, systems that are being produced. As you know, for China, it's about economies of scale. So they don't make money producing the smaller items; they make money producing the bigger items. So I think those are the four main areas that I see helping us to increase adoption of solar energy or renewable energy generally in Africa. I think just the other issue I also forgot to mention is the issue to do with mini hydros. If you look at Zimbabwe, there are over 3,000, if not 10,000 dams that could actually be harnessed for, mini hydro electricity projects. And it's often an area that is really ignored. We only tend to focus on wind, and yet there are so many resources around dams. We now focus on wind and solar PV. There are now technologies that allow, a small dam or even a river to actually run mini hydro power stations. Yeah, so over to you, Obed. That's my contribution on this one.
Thank you very much, Nyasha. Coming back to Sunny, so this is going towards the end of our session, but coming back to you, Sunny, the question now I have for you is, can Africa be truly independent of oil utilization?
That's a very important and critical question, my dear Obed. It's like saying you are dead without fossil fuel or oil currently. That's the truth and nothing but the truth. Energy transition is going on. Africa cannot be totally independent of oil for now. Like I mentioned in my opening, there should be a balance. The balance ensures affordability and availability. Now, the fossil fuel we look at, we can be talking about the issues of decarbonization because we cannot achieve net zero emission. But technology can help to reduce the carbon emitted in green energy in the greenhouse formation. If you see, the issue of Ukraine-Russian war has made it clear to the world that oil or fossil fuel is very, very essential. Now, if you say you are off without oil or fossil fuel, the byproducts and the after products, you still need them for industrial development and the petrochemicals. Whether you're talking about pharmaceutical, even what you are wearing now, or better, what I'm wearing, there are one way or the other byproducts of oil. The certain things you use in your house are still byproducts. But because we want to have an environment that is harmonious, we want to live a world that we create a balance because we cannot have everything. What Africa should be doing is to increase the utilization of renewables, just like Nyasha talked about the hydro system, the geothermal system, the solar, and the different areas. We start to create infrastructure that will ensure that we have this balance. The fossil fuel for now, from now till 2050 to 2060, will still be in the market. And we cannot start exporting our renewables because we don't have enough. But fossil fuel helps in drawing the economy of Africa. Think of the LNG that Nigeria, country like Nigeria, is exporting to the Asian countries. It's helping to buffer the economy of West Africa. Today, Nigeria is the largest economy in Nigeria, in the sub-Saharan Africa, and also in our sector. It's because of this LNG and the oil sector. Think of what it's doing in the life of people in Angola, how it's going to transform their lives in Namibia and Senegal. But we look at about environmental consciousness and say, now that the level or the energy mix is about 60% fossil and about 15 to 20% renewable, how do we increase it? So it become about 50% fossil and 35% renewable. That increase will create a big change and also help in ensuring economic development, providing jobs. All the jobs shouldn't come from the oil sector, but it should also come from the renewable sector. But do we really need the oil? Yes, we need it. The problem of Europe in the past 1 year has made us to know that the world cannot live without oil. The world we live for today, I tell you, just as it goes, you are dead without money, you are dead without oil. But your life will be better when you have a balance with renewable. So Africa cannot be fully independent because now we don't have electric vehicles in Africa. Our road network is not within the range of having electric vehicles. We don't have that infrastructure. These things we should have a projection that we are working towards a long term, which could be 20 to 25 to 30 years. But also what we should bear in mind, God has given Africa all these minerals for a reason. Whether it is oil, whether it is gold, whether it's diamond, God gave all these natural resources because He wants us to be a number one continent in the world. But what we have to do, as the world speaks about energy transition, how will Africa balance these available energies to ensure dynamic economic development? Africa is still backward. So renewable will not do the whole magic for us. But I put it, if we can balance the two, then we are good. Because Africa is a good haven for investment and has the potential for growth to take over in the world. The next wave is Africa ready, and all of us here should help to ensure that that development comes to Africa. Thank you, Obed.
Hi, Obed. If I may come in also on this one, I think as Sunny is saying, it's not easy given the resources that are required to to be 100% on renewables. But Africa is in a very, very good position to be able to utilize the abundance. If you look at the conditions for renewable energy adoption, are quite good, for Africa. So as much as it's going to require a lot of money, I think a lot of it is also to do with policy, where in some countries, like especially here in Zimbabwe, for example, the government has said that no one should put an electric geyser, water heater in all new houses that are coming up. That means that people are putting up solar heaters, solar water heaters, and that takes off about 30% of a household's energy bill. If you look at public transportation in Zimbabwe, it's a major cause of concern in terms of bus transport system, and it's not just for Zimbabwe. I think it's only South Africa here in Southern Africa that has got a metro service. So a lot of it, why Africa is still using a lot of oil, it's got to do with transportation. It's got to do with cooking. If you look at the cooking, clean cooking initiatives in Southern Africa, it's very limited, although in East Africa that is increasing. So if you look at the use of biogas, if you just look at putting out maybe biogas or facilities in a lot of African countries, that could take another 30% off in terms of the energy requirements that are leading us to rely on fossil fuels. So in a way, I think it's a number of things that are required for you to be able to move or to create a balance. There's certainly room to create a balance between the use of fossil fuels and also renewable energy. Thank you.
Can I also add there, Nyashine, there's something that also close to our heart at iGen. I was recently in a webinar similar to this where we were talking about microgrids. And this largely speaks about, yes, bringing all these different sources of energy into the mix, but largely also understanding and taking into account the fact that renewable energy is not cheap. So if you think about all of these components, the solar panels and the batteries and all of that, does not come cheap. But rather than making it almost a burden on a single household or on a group of households, we could be looking at microgrid systems that are actually smart enough to know how to allocate the power where the power is needed and actually making it work. Because what is happening now is almost only the ones that can afford are able to then put this power. But you might even find that in many cases, the opportunity to actually grow this and make it at microgrid level, the investment is not as intense. So if you think of the load of a single household that must get a 5 kilowatt hour battery, or a load on a group of households that must get a 30 kilowatt hour battery, it might actually start looking a lot more affordable and a lot more sustainable. But also because in many parts of the African continent, there is no benefit of a large grid, a large network of grid, because at the end of the day, some grid support is actually needed. But there are places in the rural areas where it is just not feasible to put up grid at all. But where the opportunity is to then look at microgrid level, give a lot more sustainability into projects because of the impact, but also because of the cost that is no longer almost a responsibility of a single household. And there we're looking at opportunities to bring in biomass and waste and all of that, so that at the end of the day, the energy mix that makes sense is more than just your solar and battery, but you taking into account all of these other sources of energy that are already readily available. So in order for Africa to rely less on fuel, really on fossil fuel, really we should be looking at opportunities like that as well. But the technology to develop that, I think we all now understand the basics are there. It's just for Africans to pick this up and actually make it local and make it and put in the innovation that's actually needed. On our side at iGen, for example, we think of ourselves as more than just a hardware manufacturer. We're looking at adding an IoT layer or a data layer on top of our batteries, so that we can then see how we can allocate resources across a number of components within a microgrid, for example. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dumi. Before we actually close today's session, I would like to ask from the panel, do you have any closing remarks or any comments?
Yeah, thank you, Obed. Again, thank you, Power of Africa Conference. I'll look at things this way. We need environmental sanity. We also need economic stability. The indigenous companies are doing quite a lot. They need encouragement. What are we doing as a government, as a people, will determine where Africa will be in the next 5 to 10 years. Look at it this way, we have to bear in mind that the population of Africa is growing. like I mentioned in the opening remark, that Africa will even exceed North America, will exceed Russia tremendously, and the Caspian and the Middle East. Africa will be almost at the same level with the Asian countries, China, for instance. African population will be to the point of trying to dwarf that of India, I'm telling you. And then we need is power generation. We need our economy to grow. If not, we have an anemic economy and an anemic people. That's where you have all these people rushing away from Africa or things not going on very well. So this is your chance, Africa, and this is our chance to develop our economy by ensuring that we have a formidable balance between the fossil and the renewable. Energy is the engine of development, fueled by human capital. So now we have it that Africa is coming to embrace the renewable. The government should encourage it tremendously. Like we said, technology is highly needed. Capital is highly needed. Capacity building is highly needed. We have to redefine our academic and educational system to be a transformational and technological based education. Think of some schools in Africa, a whole undergraduate will have just one computer in a class of about 200 to 500 people. Does it really make sense? But you're going to see some people in our government that have 50 cars, an individual that has 50 cars and 20 homes abroad. So my message to them, if we really want Africa to stand, if we really want Africa to progress, we have to start to invest in our people. We have to help in developing the local economies by helping the local companies to attract finances, to also to get the technology and ensure that our people are well trained so that we'll be able to meet up the competitive challenges that we have in the world of today, so that we'll be formidable in the global community and become a region that is well developed. If not, we continue to live in the dark system, but God will not allow us to be there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sunny. Nyasha, do you have any closing remarks?
Yeah, thank you, Obed, for hosting us. This was quite an interesting debate. A lot of insights gained and new connections made. I enjoyed, the conversations around collaboration, as well as, just felt challenged by Tumi, for instance, who is actually manufacturing or assembling lithium batteries. I think that's the way we should be looking at growing the energy sector in Africa. We should be looking at, venturing out and experimenting with new technologies. It's an open canvas, and the opportunities are here for all of us to take advantage of. In the same way as entrepreneurs, we are also then, helping, those who are disadvantaged, and some of them, they will never see, electricity from the grid. So why not also allow them to benefit from the new technologies that are coming out and making energy more accessible? As we do it, obviously, the environment is on top of the agenda. Climate change is real, and it's affecting Africa, more than anyone else in the world, because, we are already on the back foot. So certainly, I think this conference has been an eye-opener, and I feel quite challenged as an entrepreneur to go out there and do more in terms of increasing renewable energy adoption. Thank you all for hosting us.
Thank you very much, Nyasha. Tumi, last but not least.
Yeah, thank you. I tend to agree with Sunny Oputa on this one, where we're saying we can say a lot about what Africa needs, but the investment and the finance is coming outside of Africa. So I think the onus is really on the men and women that are in the room that are negotiating these foreign direct investments in terms of how they should be benefiting Africa, and having the courage to actually move away and say, look, but we cannot accept that. If your foreign direct investment means that we are not going to be able to fulfill some of our development objectives, if your foreign direct investment means that we are not going to be able to develop local skills and all of that, maybe let's wait a bit and look for be bold around that, because at the end of the day, we cannot continue watching this kind of bleeding. So I think it is really possible. The biggest problem that we have is then the makeup and the nature of the people that are in that room. Do they actually understand development? Are we putting the right leadership forward as Africans to actually represent and insist on the type of development that we are actually looking for? I believe that the skill is there. As we said earlier, even we are producing young engineers, and we can actually develop our own solutions that actually talk to the real needs of communities. And if we don't do that, we keep on getting stuck in the same positions where we produce minerals and we lose minerals. We have no power to deal with illegal mining, and some of this illegal mining is not even illegal mining by Africans; it's illegal mining by others outside of the continent. So I think the biggest stumbling block that would stop, even if we could have all of the skills, is the people in the room that are making decisions. I think as Africans, we need to be very careful who we're putting forward at political level, who are supposed to actually guide the kind of development that we are looking for. Thank you very much.
I give thanks to all the members of the panel, and I give very warm thanks to all the viewers. Thank you for joining today's discussion, Diversifying Africa's Core Energy Source to Become Independent of Oil on Power Africa Conference 2022. Thank you very much and have a good day.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
And we are almost at the end of day one of the Power of Africa Conference 2022. Our last session for the day covers the agricultural sector. Hope you all enjoyed that last session. I'll be right back after to close the day and, of course, give some announcements for day two.
Welcome to the 2022 Power of Africa Conference. My name is Balaji Ajike, and I am the CEO of GT Network. GT Network you can watch on any television that you can find. Thank you so much for being here with us. Today we have a panel of great people who are going to discuss agriculture. And Power of Africa is about building a more beautiful, talented, and powerful new Africa. So welcome Mohamed Diaby, Spenica Darko, Grace Buogi, and Jocelyn Agbo. First, we're going to allow Jocelyn Agbo to talk and introduce herself and let you know what she does.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jocelyn Agbo, and I am from Nigeria. And I am the founder of Farm on Wheels, a social enterprise that works with smallholder rural farmers. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jocelyn, for being here. We welcome you. Next, we have Spenica Darko.
Hello, I'm Spenica Darko, founder of Farmer Tribe, an agribusiness that provides end-to-end support to smallholder farmers in northern Ghana. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here, Spenica. And now we have Grace Buogi.
Hi everyone, I'm Grace Boji, founder Boji Farms. What we do, we provide livestock extension and advisory services to established and early stage farmers all over East Africa. I'm from Uganda, by the way.
Thank you so much, Grace. We welcome you. And last, we have Mohamed Diaby.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mohamed Diaby. I'm from Cote d'Ivoire. I'm the founder and managing director of Dota Inpex, which is a company specialized in the promotion and sourcing and processing of agro products such as coconuts and cassava.
Thank you so much for being here, Mohammed. Today's
Thank you.
panel is all about agriculture. It is promoting productive and regenerative agriculture towards driving a circular economy in Africa. So I'm going to start with Spenica. How can regenerative agriculture increase the income of smallholder farmers such as yourself?
So I think with time immemorial, when I was discussing regenerative agriculture with our farmers, most of them realized that these are practices they have been doing, but didn't know there was a term or there is something that basically describe what they have been doing. So they just said, we have been practicing some of these things you are introducing or you are talking to us about. So we find out that those who perform or do certain practices like cover cropping and other circular activities were having greater yield, not because of the fertilizer they put up front, but because of how rich or how much they have invested in their soil. So like I always tell our farmers that the soil is part of your fixed cost. You just don't produce because the fertilizer feeds the crop, it doesn't feed the soil. So after production, before production, you have to invest in working on the soil to improve the soil health and maintain it so that you can keep on reaping or harvesting good yields. You just don't farm, harvest, and then you leave the soil bare. And with that, it translates into their yields. It's disheartening that you can cultivate an acre and just harvest 400 kilos per acre after. And here up north in the northern part of Ghana, we have a unimodal rainfall pattern, which means you have no do-over. If you miss the season, you have missed it for the whole year. And it's either some parts of the north that have irrigation schemes and they do dry season farming, but some areas don't have that option to rely on dry season yield. So if you get lower yields, you are to stick with that lower yield and income that comes with the lower yield for the whole year. So I think it will some practices that these farmers have been practicing time immemorial, cover cropping, mulching, the no-till method, and a whole lot adds up to the end results of getting higher yields. It also reduces the burden of farmers to invest monies into their farm, because if you know your farm nutrient or your farm is a bit healthy, you can rely on that than feeding it the crop direct fertilizer. So some can reduce their fertilizer per acre to 2 bags, that's 100 kg per acre, whilst those with poor soil will have to go as far as 200 kg, and all those things gather to increase the crop budget of a farmer. And at the end, if yields are not encouraging, then they don't even break even, which is very disheartening and goes against and affect the farmer's livelihood. So I think regenerative agriculture is essential to maintaining the soil health, and it goes a long way to improve yield and increase incomes of smallholder farmers. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Spenica. You enlighten not just myself, but I'm sure a lot of people when you talk about investment, because a lot of people don't recognize the fact that it's not just a physical investment, to till the soil, understanding your soil, but then also to make sure that you're investing financially into the business, into the crops, with the right, soil, with the right everything to do it. Thank you so much for your answer. I actually want to move to Grace because you brought up that subject. It's all about educating, because now the farmers are doing this and then their families hopefully are taking this on. So if you could, how did you get your children to learn farm skills like we see at your farm? And how best can children be involved to prepare them to become farmers for future generation so that they can actually use all those skills that Spenica is talking about to keep your farm moving forward? Sorry, Grace, you are muted.
Thank you so much. One of the challenges we are facing as farmers in Africa, in Africa, that we are farming, but we are not involving our children into the sector, and it's one of the biggest challenge. Reason being, in agriculture, it has a lot of stereotypes attached to it. Like an example in Uganda, where in schools, children are punished. Actually, the form of punishment is for them being given a chunk of land to be able to dig as a form of punishment. You get it? So children grow up thinking agriculture is a punishment, agriculture is a dirty job, anything bad is to do with agriculture. Actually, in Africa, it is so hard to find a child who says, I want to grow up to be a farmer. So how are we going to change this scenario? One of the things I've thought about is to make agriculture is a science, to make it exciting for the youth and the children as well. How do we make it exciting? For example, 2 years ago, I was a part-time farmer and I shifted from town to the rural area to the farm. But my children didn't like the idea. But how have I made it exciting for them? I tried to involve them in the exercises I was doing. I encouraged them to grow their own food. I encourage them to try out new things, and they are finding it exciting. Therefore, I have a 9-year-old son. My 9-year-old son, what he's finding agriculture so exciting about the fact that I've promised him there's going to be a lot of technology. He's always looking forward to having a drone at the farm, and that keeps him going. So let's make agriculture exciting. Most people, when they see me, my nails are painted, and they think, no, you can't be a farmer with painted nails. Yeah. No, that's a lie. Agriculture is meant to be fun. Agriculture, somebody can have a career in agriculture. That's all I have to say.
Thank you so much, Grace. I'm with you with the painted nails, I appreciate that. A lot of people call it the green thumb, to be able to go out and to harvest and to, till the land and all that. So I do appreciate the fact that you're trying to make it fun for children and let others know that there's nothing wrong with it. It is not punishment. So we do appreciate your answer, Grace. And I want to move over to Jocelyn because this moves to your subject matter. How do we promote regenerative agriculture at farm and policy level? Because, hey, in order for us to make sure that we keep moving it to the next generation, certain policies have to be changed or they have to be introduced. So, Jocelyn, if you could take on that answer.
Thank you, Bolaji and Grace. I'm with you there on making agriculture exciting. Because the mindset of the poor man's mind, the mindset that farmers are poor, that needs to change. Agriculture is not just science; it is also a business, and it is, like she said, people can get a career out of that. So, regenerative agriculture and productive and regenerative agriculture is a multifunctional practices that really needs to be brought into the smallholder rural farmers. Now, in Nigeria, for example, over 80% of the food is produced by smallholder farmers. And these smallholder farmers are in direct contact with the land, how they use it, with the resources that we have, which is the land, the water, the forest, and our ecosystem. And these resources are very finite and they are depleting rapidly when you look at the population of the world and Africa as a continent, as it's growing on a daily basis. You would agree with me that productive and regenerative agriculture is really the way to go. And to really drive down this in at farm level and also at policy level, we need to use the bottom-up approach where we center this around the smallholder farmers. Now, if smallholder farmers are producing 80% of the food we eat, it also means that they are also working on 80% of the land that is being used in Africa. And imagine where 80% of the smallholder farmers implement productive and regenerative agriculture, and you would see that it will really drive towards circular economy. Now, the three approaches I would usually look at is intensify knowledge acquisition and skills development for our smallholder rural farmers. So there's this mindset with smallholder farmers as well, that they are set in their ways. So they have this method, they do things, and when you try to teach them a new one, they tell you, oh, our great grandfathers have been doing it, and our grandfathers, so why would we want to do something different? So I think intensive new knowledge and skill acquisition need to be incorporated and brought down to the smallholder rural farmers level. And once they're able to learn the skills and knowledge, the second approach would be to have a hands-on demonstration with these farmers. And during this hands-on demonstration, it lets them understand that what you learned, the new skills and the new knowledge you have actually works. And if they're able to do this, I can tell you smallholder farmers are the same people that would go and tell their colleagues, oh my goodness, this works perfectly. If we do this, this is the benefit, and you don't need to say too much about it. And the third approach would be to directly connect the smallholder farmers or their families to policymakers. Now, if there is a policy that says this is the best approach, there are good agronomic practices. And some of them are a little bit, it's not very regenerative in nature. And if we say, okay, if you want to farm more than 1 hectare or half hectare or 3 hectares piece of land, you have to, it's now a policy, you have to implement this method. I think that is another way that we can really drive this because in Africa, there is this particular mindset of production and consumption, which is take, make, and waste. But if we're able to incorporate the 6R format, which includes reuse, rethink, refuse, recycle, and repair, I think for agriculture, recycle, repair, and rethink is the way to go. If we're able to incorporate these three, rethink the way we practice agriculture, repair the land, plant more trees, do crop rotation, mulching, and then recycle. In agriculture, there is no waste. Everything that comes from agriculture can be recycled. So if we're able to incorporate this, I believe at farm level, we can be able to do sustainable, productive, and regenerative agriculture, and at the same time drive circular economy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jocelyn. This moves me to Mohammed, because especially when you're talking about the farmers, they're creating all of this. And now Mohammed especially is within the export industry, I'm expecting, right? So is there a way regenerative agriculture has enhanced the agro-export business for Africa?
Most definitely, because again, we are talking about food business.
Yeah.
And today, people are more and more cautious of what they eat, what they put into their body. So they're much more strict, and they demand more quality product. In a sense, so when we think of that, it means that we have to take this back to the farm level. And implementing good practices at farm gate level enables the farmers to gain more, but also it allows the product to be well seen on the international market. Remember, Africa mostly is competing with South Asia or Asia countries because we kind of have the similar type of product. And you need to keep in mind that they are really advanced in terms of technology, in terms of practices, in terms of certification. So by putting these good practices and using regenerative agriculture within Africa, it allows us to at least put ourselves within the same space and be able to compete at the same level, right? People want to have goods from Africa because Africa, when you take Europe, for example, to West Africa, it's just 10 days transit time with a boat to get there, compared to when you are importing goods from I don't know, Philippines or another Costa Rica, where they have over 30 days. So essentially, we are close. we have the same quality, we have the same product. We need to put emphasis on the type of product quality and certification that we put onto the market, because that represents, you know, Africa and the kind of product that we do. Me personally, I think there shouldn't be any there shouldn't be a double standard. The same quality that we are producing to put onto the international market, we need to find a way to implement that within our own habits locally, right? It's important for us to be able to eat good and be cautious. And with this new generation that's coming up, people are more so locally cautious of, you know, what they eat, what they want their children to eat. So nowadays they support more more agriculture that are well incentive, bioagricultural. And when you take to the the farmers, it also creates additional income for them. For example, when recycling or processing all the waste, like Joyce was saying, pretty much everything within agriculture is recyclable, right? So that creates additional income for the farmers, and it allows the farmers to work more and have a better incentive to produce, and not only think about getting out the product fast, but more so taking time to get good product out, making sure that they use good practices, and making sure that they have good yield, in order to give a very good label to the product, which essentially represents, you know, product coming from Africa. So, yeah.
Thank you so much, Mohammed. I want to see who on this panel would like to talk about the technology needed, because a lot of these farmers, it seems that you guys need access to these resources. So who on the panel feels that they know that? You got it, Mohammed?
Yeah, I mean, I want to jump in and let the other participants also jump in, because I'm sure everybody has got something to say.
Yes.
You know, there's two sides to this.
Yes.
When it comes to agriculture for Africa, you have the technology, but also you have the equipment side.
Yes.
Right. I want to start with the equipment. What allows Asia to produce more is that somebody can have just 1 acre of land, and he's not going to harvest this acre of land only by his hands. I was in China not too long ago. You have so many different instruments that cost from $150 to something. So very affordable equipment that they can use to plant, they can use to harvest, they can use to water the field, all type of equipment that they have, right? So what actually we need locally is to have engineers, people start thinking of designing really good equipment, affordable equipment, right? Keep in mind that all the raw materials that are used for those equipment, whether you talk about the steel, are imported already from Asia. So that's a cost for us, right? So we need to actually have our mineral industry worked out, in a sense that we need to start working all the steel and everything from Africa, then process those steels and everything else into equipment for the African market, right? And then from there, we need to associate technology into that, with the drones and all the technology that can actually give us much more precise techniques, right, within for agriculture. It's going to be less painful for the producers. It's going to be much more accurate. It's going to save them time and resources, and it's going to actually make them more money, right? If they make more money, they're happy farmer, happy exporter, happy consumer, everybody happy, you know, within the whole chain, right? So that's just what I wanted to add. So for me, it's really important that at an institutional level, African countries, African governments start thinking about processing their own raw material to allow us to have things like, you know, steel, sheet, everything that it needed to be able to produce equipment. We need to put emphasis on education, so that we have much more engineers that are going to come out and design equipment and everything that we need in order for us to be able to work. And also we need to have, you know, this new generation with the technology in order to complement everything that's going to be done, so that, you know, we are much more efficient, we are much more competitive, and, you know, so that agriculture start becoming much more fun, right, and easy for people to get involved into. So I'm just going to stop there.
I appreciate that comment, Mohammed. Yes, next.
I would like to jump in here. I agree with Mohammed on technology and equipment. That's mechanization. Also, production. And in production, access to quality inputs and finance, that is credit or loan, it's very important. Which I think is also the bedrock of agriculture, right? Because if a farmer doesn't have access to quality inputs or have the money to buy those inputs and start planting, then mechanization would not have farmers to go and do the whole plowing and harrowing part. Neither will Agritech have customers or people that patronize their platforms. So I think the first step would be to increase production capacity of farmers by giving them access to these quality inputs and also access to credit facilities. And technology also plays a huge role, because for me, in my observation, it helps in terms of operations. It reduces the cost of operations. And if the cost of operation reduces, so the cost of production reduces for the farmers as well. So if the farmers are able to reduce their cost of production, increase their production capacity due to incorporating technology into our operational activities, just like Mohammed answered, incorporating drone services, using that to do farm mapping, it really cuts down the cost and the time used. So technology, it's very integral that we use that if we want to effectively and sustainably scale operations and productions and access to increase their food security in the country or in Africa.
Thank you.
If I can just add one little bit to Jocelyn, talking about credit access, I think one thing we need to take account of, to really consider here is financial education for the farmers, right? Because giving a man with money and no financial education is a very dangerous man, and they're gonna find themselves into real debt, and it's gonna create lack of confidence into the system, and then it's gonna put much more barriers. So I definitely agree that we need to put credit system in place, and it has to have very good measures to follow up on that. But also farmers, no matter if they're literate or not, they need to have some sort of financial education. Or they need to help their family with it. So I'm
absolutely,
absolutely. Spenica wanted to say something.
Okay, so what I wanted to say is that I think it's time we start finding solutions. Like Jocelyn said, smallholder farmers produce 80% of the food here in Ghana. But however, when interventions, when equipment, when technologies are being introduced, it gears towards a bit of a larger holding farmers. And it leaves the smallholder farmer who are producing 80% of their food and is targeting the 20% producers. There are corn shellers, there are threshers, there are threshers, all those technologies or all those machinery are very important and very necessary in the agri sector. But with a smallholder farmer with a 10-acre land, with a 20-acre land, those machineries are not for him, or even if they can afford, it doesn't make sense to buy a combined harvester that can harvest over 100 acres a day. So I think we need to start planning specifically for the smallholder farmers. If they are producing 80% of the food that feeds us, why is it that we keep on bringing interventions that are geared towards the larger? So at the end, after these equipment, investors spend as much as $35,000 to get these equipment. They now provide the services to smallholder farmers, and it's good. They pay as they provide the service. You plow an acre, I pay you. You shell a bag of maize, I pay you. But what about looking at a farmer who is cultivating 10 acres of maize, harvesting between 100 to 150 bags, paying 10 cedis per acre. That means 10 cedis per bag for shelling. So that means if I'm harvesting 150 bags, or if a farmer is harvesting 150 bags times 10 cedis, that is ending the farmer paying for service or paying for the cost of shelling at 1,500 Ghana cedis here. But there are corn shellers that are of lower price, as low as 2,000 Ghana, that a farmer can use to shell his maize, shell that of his wife, and those in their larger household. At the end, polish it and keep the sheller in his shed or in his house. And at the end, he gets to pay for it one time and gets to use it throughout the years for as high as 5 years. But every year they keep paying to equipment service providers, they keep paying for the service. But if the corn shellers and these equipment are targeting smaller holder farmers who can now pull out money from their household to buy $100 sheller, to buy a $200 sheller, to buy a $500 power tiller, then we pushing mechanization that is geared towards larger farm or commercial farmers who at the end of the day comes back to provide services. And some farmers have to queue as long as 1 week before this equipment gets to their farm to pay for a service. So why is it that I can pay once a year per farmer has to pay as high as $500 when there are shellers that can cost as low as $1,800 when they can buy with their family and pay off the cost of that equipment one time? The same goes to pumping machines and the rest. There are farmers who hire these pumping machines and pay per the hour to pump water during the dry season into their fields. But with a little support, as Jocelyn said, with a little credit, the farmer can buy it maybe at pay half for the cost of the implement. Then the next season pay half for the cost of implement and owns the equipment for at least 3 to 4 years. And I think that is how technology should be geared towards or should be introduced to the smallholder farmers. Using a corn sheller is good, but at the end of the day, if I have to wait 1 week with my harvested maize on the farm and risk losing it to bush or wildfires, then I will have to now take matters into my hand and use the conventional method of threshing, beating with stick, which decreases the quality of grains. And at the end of the day, the farmer loses on the quality aspect in a sense that they don't get the premium price. But it's either he loses the quality grains or he loses the grains they harvest at once due to bushfires. So I think we should start planning with the smallholder farmers in mind when we want to introduce technology, especially mechanization services. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Spenica. Grace, do you have anything to add to that? Grace, you're muted.
I don't have much to add, but Jocelyn was talking about technology. Technology, we are still far, and there are a number of reasons as to why we are really far. Most of Africans, we lack the knowledge on how to go about with the technology. Like somebody here earlier on mentioned that some people are still stuck in the old ways of doing things. I will take an example. In Uganda, it is like 2 years ago that we have started embracing vaccination of our animals, especially goats. And we are failing to realize the goat population in Uganda because most farmers are not familiar with vaccination. They know goats are not dewormed. You get the point. So with all those challenges, you are still a long way to go in embracing technology as Africans. We need a lot of effort. And my advice would be, as farmers who are knowledgeable, who have the experience and expertise, we should be the ones to help the other farmers out there, help them know what technology can do. For example, I used to experience a challenge of high staff turnover. And some of the challenges and some of the issues that they mentioned, some of the workload at the farm was too much. For example, I have 5 goats at the farm, and I realized when we had an exit interview with some of the workers, they said there's a lot of work. But I had to think of something else that I could introduce to lessen the workload, especially spraying. Basically, they never looked forward to Sundays all the time. So these are some of the things. And also as farmers, if you have a neighbor, you're a farmer somewhere, you're a neighbor, you have an idea that is working for you, please take on that farmer, teach him what you're doing. How is it helping you make your farm prosper? Yeah.
Thank you so much, Grace. So I would like to move back to Jocelyn specifically because all of this is all about circular economy, right? So what's the relevance of circular economy in agriculture at the farm level?
Thank you, Balaji. So, circular economy is like a keyword now. It's catching on, and it's a widely understood concept of, no waste, basically. But in agriculture at farm level, circular economy can be implemented in terms of the type of agronomic practices that are being introduced into the activities of the farmers every farming season. So like I mentioned earlier, resources are depleting. Let's take forest, for example. There's a lot of tree felling and there is not a lot of tree planting. I was in the farm the other day. We're trying to map out our farm for seed production. And the farm manager kept telling me, we need to fell this tree, we need to fell this tree. And I asked him, so how many are you planning on planting? What's your plan on planting the trees? Because when you fell the tree, you need to plant it somewhere, you pay it back somewhere. So that is regenerative, that is a circular economy in one aspect. Another aspect is at farm level. So from our farmers that farm soybeans, we try to tell them that soybeans introduces nitrogen into the soil, and when harvesting, do not uproot. You cut down and leave the roots so that it retains those nutrients. And currently, the soil is depleting rapidly, and in some places, due to increased production, you find out that the soil nutrients is about 40%. And this would mean you need to add more fertilizers. You need to use organic or inorganic fertilizers. And when you try to do this, if it's not properly applied, it causes a lot of soil. It erodes the soil and even makes it acidic in terms of planting. So another form of circular economy is using cow dung. This is organic fertilizers from animals, and you use it to mix it up in the soil and increases the soil's nutrients without eroding or making the soil acidic. So these are some ways you can, implement the circular economy in productive and regenerative agriculture. And also, for example, in processing as well. Like I mentioned, there is no waste in agriculture. In processing, there is no agricultural produce that you process that you find waste. We have a rice milling facility, and from the husk to the paddy and the shell that you mill out, everything is usable. It is really usable, and if you're able to understand that and put it back into the system, you find out that it creates more business opportunities for the farmers. It creates more market niches for the farmers as well. So for circular economy, I look at the benefits in terms of improved livelihoods and improved livelihood in the sense, like I just mentioned, access to new market niches and more business with the produce with your farm produce. Another one is healthy and resilient ecosystem. So once we keep eroding our ecosystem without putting back, without trying to not waste everything, and we try to stay away from the lifestyle of take, make, and dispose, and incorporate this lifestyle of rethink, recycle, and repair, especially in agriculture. I think it would really help in increasing a sustainable, productive and regenerative agriculture through circular economy.
Thank you, Jocelyn. Spenica, back to you. What does circular economy mean to the small holder farmers in your perspective? You're muted.
Before circular economy became a whole lot of idea, when we go or we visit the rural smallholder farmers, they keep some small ruminants, they keep poultry up north here, they usually keep their guinea fowls. Then before the season begins, they gather these poultry droppings, the droppings from the farm, both goats, sheep, and cattle. Then before the season begins, they send it to the field, they spread it on their field, they produce, they harvest, they shell the crops, then they pick certain parts of the stalk, the stem, and the rest, send it home to dry in a hay form. Then during the dry season, when there is no grass on the field, they feed it to their animals. So they had a close loop or a circular way between their crop and the various livestock and guinea fowl and birds they kept in their house to make sure they are in a constant circular motion of enriching both parts of the animal they are producing and the crops they are producing. And that went a long way to improve their soil, to improve getting cheaper feed for the animals, and it went to increase their income and reduce their spending. So circular economy for a smallholder farmer means increase in yield, improve quality of produce, and is beneficial to the environment, and an increase in yield definitely means there is food security. So the whole idea of circular economy goes back way before circular economy became a thing. Farmers have been practicing it, and it's time those who had stopped go back to visit it, and those who are practicing it intensify it so that it can go a long way to help them improve livelihood and increase their income. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Spenica. I'm gonna lastly work with Mohammed. How can agriculture make Africa truly prosperous when you compare yourself? You've mentioned Asia, you've mentioned a couple different countries. Technology, we talking about that. We're trying to put ourselves, in the same game with everybody at this point. Agriculture, how can we really move forward at this point for Africa?
So in order for Africa to be a prosperous nation, there's few things that we need to kind of master. Our soft industry, which is agriculture. Our hard industry, we talked about it, everything that is mineral and everything, education and health. Yeah. Talking about agriculture, I think one thing is sure, we always need to eat, right? Yeah. That's for sure. And when you take Africa, about 60% of the land is arable, which is about 870 million acres of land. So the potential is just unbelievable. It's huge. It's massive, right? So, and developing agriculture will essentially touch different other industries. So it's going to create more jobs. It's going to create wealth, generational wealth for people, and then it's going to allow Africans to make money and be able to invest within Africa. But again, we need to understand that this is something that we need to take very seriously. Like Sepenika mentioned earlier, we need to treasure those that represent really our agricultural tissue, which is the small stakeholder, the small farmers. And it's pretty much the same case in every single country in Africa. Most of the agricultural resources come from small farmers, right? And then you have few big farmers, but mainly it's thousands and thousands or millions of small farmers that are spread all across different countries, producing, fruit and vegetables and other product. So essentially, we need to actually work on how to build the industry as we talked about it, mechanizing. Again, taking in mind, like Sepenika said, the small stakeholders. That's the first step. Second step is how to actually add value to those resources by processing. The age of exporting raw material is done. That has to be clear for us, right? There's no small scale. Even if the small farmer in the village, they can start processing his cocoa beans, his coconuts, his pineapple, his cassava, his okra, whatever the case may be. We need to start adding value to our products, right? By adding value, we need to take account of everything that is standards for us, but also for the markets that we look forward to, right? Essentially, that's going to help us build and build and build more. If you take, again, for me, I think the best way to move forward is always to look at different examples. If you look at Asia, the US, that's what they've done. Everywhere else where agriculture is big, that's what they've done. And we need to be able to be in charge of deciding how to price our commodities and everything else. You cannot simply see what's going on at the moment with the war in Ukraine. There's no wheat for us to do bread. The prices are jumping everywhere, right? But today, Cote d'Ivoire cannot really have a big impact in his cocoa beans price in the international market, right? Only few corporations would decide for us because they buy most of those beans. And it's the same case in every single country. So how do we have a major impact within our agricultural system in order for us not only to produce, to process, but also to really control what we're doing? That's the second step for me. Third step for me is that it's true that I'm into export business, but again, we need to make sure that we can start producing for the African market first, right? We need to start producing so that we can consume our product ourselves and then export the excess to the international market, right? So how do we get there? We still have a long way to go, but I think there's so many brilliant minds within Africa that I'm fully confident that we're gonna get there very soon.
Thank you so much, Mohammed. And I love the fact that you said we need to take care of home first, and then whatever else we have, we can now share with everybody else. I thank you all for your time today. This has been an amazing panel. Again, we are here for the agriculture panel, and this is all about Power of Africa 2022, building a more beautiful, talented, and powerful Africa. Today we discussed promoting productive and regenerative agriculture towards driving a circular economy in Africa. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to give you each an opportunity to come one last time up to the stage, discuss who you are, reintroduce yourself, tell them how they can find you, what business or company you're working for, and just one last note to give everybody for today. So first, Jocelyn.
I noticed you like to call me first, so maybe when next we meet, call me last. So again, my name is Jocelyn Abo, and I'm the founder of Farm on Wheels, and we work with smallholder rural farmers. And I'm going to leave you with this note. If we put our heads together in Africa in terms of agriculture, I promise you we can feed ourselves and we can feed the world. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next, we're going to go with Grace. How are you? Please Make sure you let everybody know who you are one last time. Any last minute notes or suggestions that you would like to give our audience today?
Introduce myself again. I'm Grace Boji, founder, Boji Farms, found in Uganda. My last word here is that agriculture is our next goal. Let's love it, let's give it our all. There is no single day any.
All right, so Mohammed, I'm going to call you next, actually. If you could reintroduce yourself, give the audience one last note, and of course, how can people find you?
Oh, I thought I was gonna go last since you've been calling me last.
Hey, now I'm going to switch it up today.
Just a little kick from Joyce startup. So my name is Mohamed Diaby from Côte d'Ivoire, and I'm the founder and the managing director of Zatwa Inpex. So you can find us on the www.zatwa, which is spelled zatwa.com, or on Facebook. You can find us there also. And for me, my last note would be that Africa has so much more to bring, and to African themselves and to the world. So for me, we need to start sharing. That's the most important thing. We need not to be afraid of sharing information or sharing knowledge, because usually we are stuck in one bubble, whereas we think we have the best idea. When you think of one thing, believe me, there's thousands of people that have thought about this the same thing, right? So we need not to be able to be afraid. We need not to be afraid of sharing our ideas, but we need to try to find a way to bring all the minds together so that we can develop Africa. Again, we're not really doing this for us; it's for the generation to come, right? So we have a lot of work to do, and let's just keep cracking with the work.
All right, and lastly, we have Seneca. Please reintroduce yourself and let people know how they can find you, and please leave a last note for the audience.
I'm Spenika Dakum, founder of Farmer Tribe, located in Ghana. So we can be found on www.farmertribe.com, on all social media platforms as Farmer Tribe. So I will leave with the notes, like Jocelyn rightly said, that before whatever activity that you want, or whatever part or act you play in the agricultural value chain, you have to consider the 6R or the 6R framework. You reduce, you reuse, refuse, rethink, repair, recycle, because we can't sacrifice tomorrow's soil for today's yield. And that's one thing we need to take into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you all so much. Again, this has been the 2022 Power of Africa Conference. My name is Balaji Ajike. I am based in the US, but I am of Nigeria. And today we discussed promoting productive and regenerative agriculture towards driving a circular economy in Africa. And I'm so proud to be this moderator, and I wish you all the best. And you can follow me, of course, on all social medias as Queen Balaji _. And I look forward to seeing you all soon. Please have a wonderful conference.